you need to create cross-functional T-shaped teams. Practically, it means that you would have data engineers as a new team member.
Probably, Baruch, maybe we should start with some introduction to the DevOps, like how it started and why we are just even comparing DataOps with DevOps nowadays.
No, we compare DataOps to DevOps because we compare everything to DevOps today, right? We compare GitOps, PeopleOps, and what's not. We compare everything to DevOps, and we compare everything to DevOps for a very good reason. DevOps is one of the biggest transformations in the IT industry ever. And we can now say that it was, although it wasn't fast, it was very, very successful and took the industry by the storm. Today, every company wants to think they are DevOps company and that they do DevOps right. And this is not just because of the hype, it's because DevOps has a meaningful impact on performance of any company, any software company, which means any company in general. And as you know, because there is no person in IT world today that doesn't know what DevOps supposed to be. So as you know, DevOps is a set of collaborative practices and the culture. It is a culture of collaborating between dev part, the developers, and ops part, the infrastructure, the production, the build parts of the engineering organization in an effort to overcome the siloed classical organization in which the software is thrown over the fence from dev to ops. This is kind of the essence, and this is where it starts, and from there it evolves to include all the parts of IT production today, of the manufacturing of software, and it definitely includes also QA, testing, security, product management, and all the other aspects. So basically, we are talking about, hey, we need to make sure that integration between different parts is ongoing instead of deferred to where it's very hard and makes the software worse and makes the process worse, makes the cost higher and the times longer. It's the same transformation that we experienced with Agile and Scrum when we migrated from waterfall, in which we deferred the integration to iterative process in which we integrate as fast as possible. But now we're not talking about developers that need to integrate faster. We're talking about parts of the company or the organization and different teams that need to integrate more frequently along the process of the software delivery. So this is DevOps in a nutshell, if you wish.
Right, and that's, I guess the DevOps kind of practice started more than 7 years ago, right? Correct me if I'm even more.
Much longer. The term itself, the term itself is more than a decade old, but the ideas were afloat 11, 12 years ago and ever before that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. As far as I remember, in the company I was working a while ago, I've heard about it, and it was maybe 6 years ago, and it just was kind of everyone just started doing this DevOps stuff, and mostly it was done by QA engineers as well as some administrators, you know. But nowadays we know how to do it right.
And since we know how to do it right, everything wants to be DevOps or DevOps something, DevSecOps, GitOps, and what's not. And I think this is why we are here, right? From what I understand, in the data science and the data engineering world, there are similar challenges that you folks try to solve in a similar manner. So tell me a little bit about your world and how you try to adapt those DevOps practices to what you are doing.
Yeah, Dennis, maybe you can share some bits like what kind of problems people usually have with the data. I mean, trying to build the right data pipelines, trying to build the right data access and stuff around, kind of DevOps for data.
Yeah.
How actually it's appeared this.
Yes, as Baruch said, like DevOps was about silos elimination. You have similar problems in many domains, including data, of course. And if you're talking about silos in data world, it's typically silos between data analysts and data engineers. So you have kind of more business-oriented people with dashboards, not extremely technical, and you've got like extremely technical people building crazy complex pipelines. And you've got the silo. Like imagine you need to build a new dashboard. It means you need to go to data engineer. They say, yeah, sounds good. We're gonna, schedule for next quarter when we're gonna finalize new data warehouse, and you will be able to get data from there. And it takes a lot of time really to finish your project, and it takes a lot of time. So of course, this situation can be improved and should be improved, and it's not a surprise that people talking about DataOps nowadays.
So so we're talking about collaboration between what, data engineers and data scientists?
Yeah, let's say like data users and data engineers, like
data
people, so people who look after data platform and people who consume it in a way.
Okay. So and the consumers are who are they? Product people, business people?
Might be data analyst, business analyst, data scientist, ML engineers. So all possible data consumers.
Okay, so got it. So from one side, you need to make the data accessible for them in the format that they kind of know how to consume, and on the other side, you want input from them, what they actually know, what they actually need in order to give them the data that they really need.
Yeah, and you have this separation of knowledge. On one side, you have business knowledge, like data consumers, they understand semantic of the data, and data engineers do not understand semantics of the data, but they do understand tools. And this create like huge contradiction. Like data engineers are kind of happy to help and build pipelines but they don't know meaning of the data. Whereas like users, they know meaning, but it's too complex for them just to start coding some SQL transformations and create all this staged and model views of the data. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yep.
At the same time, we can do analogy as we had different circles which intersected to build kind of DevOps. I'm kind of sharing the screen. I'm not sure if you, Baruch, can see that one. Maybe we can share that graph as well. So DevOps was kind of intersection of software development, quality assurance, and some technology operations. And nowadays, the DataOps is more like intersection of data engineering, data quality, as well as data security and some data integration, or even more. It's kind of big combination.
There is like very common question, like people are asking, is DataOps just DevOps for data? Like why we can apply everything, like why do we even need an kind of a new term or new approach? And I think the reason is very simple, is because your data pipeline is much longer than development pipeline. In development world, you can make your pipeline really short. In some cases, it can be as short as just you deploy your master to production or something like that. And in data world, it's never the case. So data system can be viewed as set of complex pipelines. Sometimes people use this metaphor of data fabric even. So this is how people see that, like data fabric. So a lot of data sources and data sinks and data pipelines, like shifting data around, and you have a lot of roles, a lot of different owners of the data. And if an organization is big enough, you have such people as a compliance who also trying to like induce, some policies, and you also have approval system. So it's like the whole story is much longer, and this is why I think in DataOps community people like to talk about lean manufacturing, right? Because lean was born at manufacturing
At Ford.
factory factories.
I guess Ford was introducing the lean.
Yeah, it's Toyota.
And
Ford is Ford. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
DataOps community is more focused on things like lean and statistical process control. So they really see their work as a pipeline, as real factory. Whereas like DevOps people, they more lean towards things like extreme programming, like test automation and this kind of techniques. And DataOps is closer to lean.
Yeah, so it's interesting how it's people see what what mental pictures we have about the industry that we are less familiar with, right? So, and obviously lean manufacturing, just to kind of defend here the classical software engineering, the lean manufacturing is obviously a very close metaphor to software engineering as well. And the pipelines are obviously much more evolved that that people who are a little bit far away can see, and obviously there are much more scenarios and much more roles involved in the DevOps pipeline per se as well, and it includes a lot of different aspects. But so I wouldn't say that it's necessarily simpler, but I think the differences are significant enough to justify the difference. I think that the details are in what you integrate and not necessarily in how complex the integration is, right? It's not a matter that we have less circles on the DevOps diagram, because I can definitely draw many more circles in Seva's diagram. It's really about that the circles are different, and they are. So I think this is the most important difference. So yeah, I mean, I get it why it kind of for you makes sense to have a longer list, but yeah, I can come up with a pretty long list for DevOps as well. What really matters is that there is not a lot of overlapping in terms of the skills and the teams that participate. This is the biggest difference for me, not necessarily the complexity.
Yeah, roles of course are different, and nature of these roles I would say also different. Another topic that you can hear about at the DataOps community is agile. It's like in software world, it's kind of people like got bored with agile. My feeling like it's like already too much of that everywhere. It's kind of finish stage. The recent data world is something new, and it's quite interesting. So the reason is that data projects, they tend to be way more structured. They tend to be organized as waterfall projects, just because of nature of work. So you as data analyst, you making kind of scientific insights for the business, and you really don't need to follow some scientific process. And it's really hard to kind of skip stages and just try things quickly and see what happens. That doesn't typically work very well with things like data science, like making experiments. So you need to be like more systematic in a way, and this makes process more staged. And kind of idea of data sprint is very new, and people are still figuring out how to apply kind of sprints to data world. And yeah, I agree with you, Baruch. Yeah, one of the biggest difference that roles are different, and they have different kind of challenges than roles within DevOps.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
By the way, Dennis, don't you think that it's kind of not possible to break this waterfall paradigm and data world because of the tooling which kind of exists right now? I guess maybe 10 years ago, we didn't have any very good approach to continuously develop everything like just in a single click, or set up some GitHub actions which will allow you to, to do all the stuff in a very, very good manner. And even, every
Yeah.
single developer can do that. And maybe it's the same thing like with data right now, because we know how complex it is to set up some database with some properties, some data there, some state, and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's not that much kind of easy as with software development, I think.
Yeah, totally. So I guess this is the main goal. You kind of cannot avoid this like stage waterfall model, but you can run your process like as a sequence, small, fast waterfalls in a way. Like if you make each stage faster, maybe your sprints are gonna be longer than in development world, but still you start doing agile in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of like monthly projects, you finally get like weeks.
Well, in the end of the day, it is an iterative process everywhere.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. You can call it, waterfall or small waterfall or agile iteration. We're talking about iterations, right? And even the concept of pipeline actually means that things are done in sequence. So but it's not that we try to get away from sequence and order. It's just a matter of doing things together and consult each other more frequently than before, to the level of, and this is something that I did manage when we spoke about DevOps, but it's very important, to the level of creating empowered teams that comprise of people from different areas of expertise, right? So the most efficient way to actually implement DevOps when it comes to team structures or team topologies are empowered team of cross functionality specialists that come together, work together in some sequence, right? And they have their own process, but it's the communication is reduced to the level of a single team instead of trying and producing an effective cross-team or cross-organization communication, which is obviously much harder. Is it something that you see happening in the data engineering world as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the expression self-service is like very common. So the idea that the more you can do within team, the better, right? So all these delays they happen because you need to go and talk to other teams, and the more you can do within team, the faster you are, right?
Oh, that's a pretty big team. If I look at the list of the people that are involved in the data ops processes,
that's one of the biggest challenges. And what people are trying to build, it's a data platform. So the challenge is the same as in DevOps. You need to pack all of that in some sort of APIs that you can call, and there is a big list of those APIs, as you can see.
So, Seva, from the team management perspective or team leading perspective, how do you do that? How do you build a team that is empowered to do data ops and make this team effective? Because again, looking at the list, it's different people, different skill set, different backgrounds. How it can even work?
Yeah, I think, Baruch, we actually, every single company which is trying to build such team, they would come up with some T-shaped people. You know about them a lot since you've got several talks around that, and I think we currently have such people in the company, and I believe even such people can create some data platforms. Otherwise, I don't think that you can establish very well communication between like 10-20 different departments. That's not really possible. You need someone who has at least some skills in different in different kind of areas, like person doesn't have to be very very proficient data scientist to be able to recognize what is what should be available for them to make them work. You need just to get some courses or some to touch. You need to just at least touch that a little bit to make sure, okay, this is what they need. Okay, I know what to do with this. At the same time, I think these sort of like engineers right now, they can establish CI/CD process with GitHub Actions. Nowadays, it's not that hard to understand what should be done in terms to deliver your software to some cloud provider, and I guess that's the way how we can do that. Maybe it's not the perfect one which would managers approve, but I don't think we currently have any choice. Like we really need to improve our skill set, and that's why I'm trying to share this picture with you guys, and that okay, in DataOps we do have a lot of skills which are required for people to build a good process, and that's really hard, and that's why it's in industry right now. It's pretty hard to find such people, and yeah, that's here we are kind of and I think we are coming to that approach, like with DevOps, when we will have more and more tooling around that in
Yeah,
order to
that would
kind
be
of break that. Yeah, in a
that would
yeah,
be my
kind of.
next question about tooling. But before we go to tooling, you're hiring, right? Yep.
Yeah,
We spoke
yeah.
about people and how you try to find them. So but let's do kind of let's cover both. So first of all, it's good to know that you're hiring and people. Synthesized is a great place to work. Highly recommend it. Go there. But tell me a little bit, what are you looking in people in order to make sure they will be a good cultural fit for the data ops world?
We can do one by one with Dennis here,
Yep.
since Dennis
Yeah,
just
yeah.
started hiring at the Synthesized. But I'll drop my a few cents here. So I think we currently know that DataOps is about data, meaning that it's about connections to different databases and working with the pipelines, and that's why we currently looking for people who is interested in working with data and building high performance software to get the data and write the data and even transform it during that process. Meaning we are looking for Java engineers who is really proficient in performance and who've been working with different databases, and that's really hard, to find such. Maybe maybe Dennis,
Yeah,
you can drop some other things.
give my perspective on that. Yeah, going back to this like long list of specialities needed for doing data projects, and it might look like that it's like nightmare, like doing data ops platform really hard, like that, like too much of everything. But
Yeah.
I think we should start from like looking at bottlenecks. Well, like main bottlenecks are, and I think there are like two main bottlenecks in current kind of data process. First is data engineering, and the second is compliance. So the first one, data engineering, is big bottleneck because it's the stage which requires like most of the coding, like kind of doing actual groundwork, building pipelines, testing, checking data quality. If you can automate that or improve, you get huge improvement already. The second is compliance, and the kind of fundamental problem with compliance is that if your data is sensitive in some way, you will need to you would need to deal with compliance in some way.
That
And
makes sense. Of course.
that's kind of very kind of fundamental thing. And the only way,
How do you work around it? That's like, I would say that the problem is there is like a very first and basic level of dealing with that, like masking credit card numbers or whatever. But in the end of the day, first of all, that's not enough. Second, you might want to use this data. And third, the sensitive data can be not that obvious.
right? Yeah. So again, like if you solve problem with sensitive data, if you make data non-sensitive, you solve compliance problem, right? So now we need to think, how do we solve this anonymization problem so we don't need to deal with sensitive data? And there are different methods. Like some people think that removing of identifiers means anonymizing data, and this is not true. Like
Yeah.
I saw it like so many times, like when people would run like masking script on database and think that they anonymize data, but that's called, like if we read scientific literature, it's called de-identification, right? And the reason is simple. Just imagine some salary column, and there is a person with very specific salary, and you can remove all identifiers, but if you know salary, you would be always be able to find that person, right? So just from values, you can quite easily get who is who in the data. So this is why you need to apply more advanced techniques such as L diversity or K anonymity, and typical standard process is quite long and manual and involves a lot of errors. And this is why there is a new technology, something we are working on. This is so-called synthetic data. Synthetic data is meant to be a kind of ultimate solution for anonymization problem. So it's completely automatic. It creates like data which is sampled from random noise. So it's completely new. It means you don't have original individuals in that data at all. So it's kind of final solution. Of course,
But how do you guarantee that this data is relevant? I think that's kind of the question, right? In the end of the day, you want to make sure that the data that you're working is relevant to what you used to have.
Absolutely, that's like very good point. That means you always should run quality checks on your data, on your synthetic data. So like whenever you create model of data and sample new data set, you need to compare it with the original data. We provide like set of built-in checks, but it can be extended like on case-by-case basis, like depending like what you're looking in, like in your data, like what they're willing to preserve. So you can control that. And if you have this anonymized synthetic view of data, you have one problem less in this DataOps platform. So your data can be accessed without compliance. So that's a solved challenge. Then you have another challenge, which is data engineering and need for like manual coding of all this data pipelines. And this is where this DataOps platform actually becomes relevant. The thing we are building is this interface or platform where you can, in self-service served manner, go and create data pipelines. And what is very important, those data pipelines should be able to anonymize data automatically, because there is challenge number two. Even if you automate, you will have to deal with compliance. And if you have both parts, like some self-served automated data pipelines plus a good solution for anonymization, it's a good start. It's already not that, but it's like much better. In fact, it allows you to run most of the project faster.
So
Yeah.
what you're saying is what I envision, and again, I don't understand the world of data engineering enough, but I would say there is an input of some true data that might be not suitable both in form and in content for working because it's not structured the way the other consumers expect it, and it's not anonymized, so it has like compliance issues. That's kind of the input. And then there is synthesized black box that massage the data or generate a new data based on the original one. And the output is that you have both data which is randomly generated but has all the traits of the original data set, and it is structured in a way that the data engineers and the analysts can actually successfully consume and do their job.
Yeah, correct. That's absolutely how it is at Synthesized.
That sounds a little bit too good to be true, but you're smart people who probably know what you are doing. And so I was we spoke about people, and we spoke about hiring, and that kind of, we go here between speaking about Synthesized as a solution for some problems in DataOps, and also how you do things in Synthesized as obviously someone who needs to implement DataOps as well. So going back to this topic, what do you do as an organization to embrace DataOps within Synthesized?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like these two main challenges, data engineering and intelligent anonymization, because we're hiring people with data engineering background and ML engineers who are interested in synthetic data. So basically, this is how we approach it. Since we tackling these two main challenges, and we are hiring relevant people, basically.
It's that's easy, right?
Yeah. Easier said than done, right? That was my kind of a comment. Should we let's talk about tools for a little bit. So we started obviously with Synthesized, that looks like it solves those two big problems of the structure of the data and the anonymization of the data, but there are probably others that you need in order to build this pipeline. How does it work? What are your Git and Jenkins and JFrog Artifactory in your world?
Yeah, and maybe here we can start with some comparison to the regular, pipeline, which everyone knows. In DevOps, we do have this pipeline kind of develop and build the app, then test the app to ensure the quality is satisfied, and then release to the users. And here for the DataOps, we kind of have a more complex pipeline. And develop the data product. The data product is something which Dennis was talking about. Manage the data resources after that. And here we come with the testing, ensuring the quality is fine. At the same time, this testing kind of comes to the releasing to the users this data. The most important thing is how we manage the usage of the data. It's really important in the data world. And then we also monitoring the usage and monitoring how results are used. It's more complex. That's why we kind of have to use more tooling in order to make that happen.
No, I would argue that the DevOps pipeline is it's oversimplified here on this graph, because obviously, for any kind of software, managing usage and monitoring the usage is important. right?
Agree.
So it's kind of it's an understatement on the DevOps part, but it doesn't matter really, because the interesting part is obviously the DataOps, the DataOps part. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess for DataOps, we can start. I know everyone knows who is using any of the tooling around kind of getting transformations from one database to another one. Everyone knows DBT tool. I think in most of the chats or in most of the Slack channels where I was looking for some people who are dealing with data, they are kind of using DBT, and I guess at the same time complaining. People used to complain, but we don't know any other kind of best solutions to make these transformations and make the CDC work. And yeah, we can think of such kind of open source products which are kind of working with some particular number of databases or particular number of streaming solutions, because every single company which is doing DataOps, like Airbnb, Amazon, and others, they building some solutions for themselves. That's why we know there are existing solutions which are adopted to them, but they couldn't be adopted to everyone, right? And that's why here we are. Like some people are using DBT right now, and they have to anonymize the data. And here we come with Synthesized as well. We do have Tonic AI who are doing kind of the same thing. Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong. These are Synthetia. As far as I know, they are doing also synthesization. And yeah, also people don't quite understand that what is the synthesize thing with the data, and that's why they are using some randomization tools which are actually they can't provide the same quality of data for sure. And yeah,
there is product called RX, which is quite widely used by large organizations like banks. It's open source, like classical anonymization tool. It's like when people talk about anonymization, they typically mean RX, even if they don't mention that. But that's not a kind of not a transformation library or something like that. It's a old school Java application that you run on your computer.
So what you are saying that as of today, what people do is they try to transform the original data and anonymize the original data and kind of massage it to the form that it's convenient and safe. And your message is throw it out of the window and instead just build new set of data which is better suited for usage and inherently safe because it has only the traits of the original data, but it's not the original data.
Yes, pretty much. And speaking of like what is Jenkins like for DataOps and stuff like that. So roughly like entire pipeline looks like that. You have something like ingestion. There are a lot of tools such as Fivetran or Stitch. You ingest this data in some big storage where like all data lives, like modern tools such as like Snowflakes or maybe Redshift. So you do some extract load, then you have to do some transformation. DBT is very popular. Then you have all this sort of possible in-house solutions for data cleansing and anonymization built in-house. And then you have this new generation of DataOps platforms such as Synthesized. Something similar to DevOps, I guess. Like at some point we didn't have good deployment tools such as Kubernetes, and like people would write scripts to deploy software, but at some point they got some abstractions. And the similar story is happening in data world. Like people trying to build own Kubernetes in a way.
And That's obviously hard, and that's not necessarily the right way to go.
Yeah, but for sure, in every single cloud provider, you have a big amount of kind of services which everyone is using. If you're using Google Cloud, you know what to do with the Google Cloud, you know what to do with AWS, you know what to do with Azure, and they are trying, to give you all the possible ways so you can build the solution on top of all the services they've got. But at the same time, once you think about some, very important data that you don't want to share with the cloud provider by some reason. We know such companies, and you have to deal with your own bicycle. So that's here we come, right? Anyway, we have to have this solution kind of DataOps platform, and that's why Airbnb, Uber, and others started, like, I guess maybe 5 years ago they started to build such platforms. And on Medium, everyone can find articles around how Airbnb started building that solution, what they've got right now, what kind of data catalog they built, what kind of data monitoring tool they developed as well. Some of those available in open source, but some of those not. So you cannot just, copy paste what they've got and just, leave as Airbnb, for example. And yeah, that's really kind of pain which currently some mid-sized companies have. And we know that everyone started to touch the data more and more, and yeah, they have to solve that problem.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a surprise that big data monopolists, like companies that own like most of the data in the world, they already have some solutions, right? But as you said, yeah, mid-sized companies and actually quite big companies, they also need good replacement for all this, as you said, bicycles and in-house solutions.
Yeah.
They need good out of the box systems.
Yep.
Yeah, and as I said, it's like 6 or 5 years ago they started to build all that solutions, and for me it means it was like, it's like yesterday. It's not like something they were building like 10 years or 15 years or something like that. And here we come with the comparison to DevOps. Like DevOps, we know started like more than a decade ago, as Baruch said, and it means that we are kind of at least in the middle if we compare, just linear kind of face-to-face DevOps and DataOps.
So there is like 10
And
years gap roughly, right?
yeah, exactly. And meaning that if you're just starting your career and thinking about where do you want to switch, or which kind of fancy stuff you want to build, you might want to think about DataOps or something related to data. So yeah, you can think about us at least.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, Dennis, what do you think about, maybe Baruch? You have some thoughts around that. When will we have enough DataOps solutions in the open source, or in some, I don't know, maybe not open source, but somehow we would, when we ask what kind of tool should we use, we will have some choice.
I believe it's near future. So building of data, like data platforms, became top one priority of all like large enterprise companies. So if you talk to like any top tier one bank and ask them what they up to, they would say that they're building data platform. That they all trying to solve that problem. Yeah, because if
Mhm.
you look back, like what was happening last 10-15 years is that people were using relational databases. Then they had quite many databases, and they had need to put all data in one place. People came up with data warehouses. Then amount of data was increasing, and we started to use ML, and we started to put our data not into data warehouses, but even into like bigger things such as data lakes. And so amount of data we process was growing, and it's not surprised that at some point the amount became kind of crucial. So we need to think how we manage all of that. So it's like it's became big problem, a priority for most of big companies nowadays. So companies facing this right now, it means companies investing also right now, and in near future we will get good solutions.
Yeah,
But
but my question is, it sounds to me very inefficient for every company to come up with the solution to a shared problem, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's from what you described, the problems are the same or very, very similar for most of the companies that do that. And just building inside for the sake of building, or the non-invented here syndrome, is sounds to me like a waste of talent, money, and time, missing the opportunity for time to market and what's not. Uh, uh, Getting back to our examples from the DevOps world, I mean, Kubernetes exists for exactly that reason. It's standard de facto that everybody, companies big and small, kind of settled on, and it's now perceived this is what you should do, instead of coming up with your own container orchestration engine. Why that's not the case in the data ops world?
Well, I think it's just not yet happened. This problem for me, like pretty obvious. There is like big lack of open standards. And yeah, you're right. It's quite weird that all companies trying to build it in-house, and there is so much of repetitive work. And if there were some open source projects and open protocols, that would be much easier. It just hasn't happened yet. And actually, we are thinking about like going into this open source world as well at Synthesized. And we do have some plans about like leading some standards and actually, yeah, moving and going into that direction.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think you previously mentioned, Dennis, that companies were building data lakes and stuff like that. And here we come to this transformation which is happening nowadays. I think everyone kind of is familiar with some articles around data mesh, or at least you've seen some videos on YouTube with some presentations around that. And Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, does it mean that you have to change the team inside the company? You have to change something, the hierarchy or the organization process, even to apply this, even if you have some DataOps solution, to apply that, you just don't you cannot just install that and it will make everything work, right? You have to change the structure, how you do the process, how you develop, how you rule the data, kind of. And here we come to this data mesh world, right?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting question. I guess it's very similar to DevOps. As Baruch said, DevOps is not just set of like tools, it's also like approach and philosophy and methodology. Like the same applies to DataOps. It's not just a set of tools, it also kind of mindset shift. So instead of siloed organization, you need to create cross-functional T-shaped teams. Practically, it means that you would have data engineers as a like new team member, right? So nowadays we've got like full stack engineers and people even like looking after deployments, like sitting in one team. In near future, we'll have a data engineer, or even at some point, the same principle as we see in DevOps: you build, you ship it. Might be real for DataOps. So engineers would become data engineers. So they would use tools and they would do data engineering work. I think this is like one of organizational changes that's needed.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen Also, in the article I've read time ago, there it was saying like organization will split even teams into some domains. Actually, it happens even right now with some microservices. If you're developing, you kind of create a team for each microservice. You have separate teams. And here we are with this data, like you can split the data by different domains, and based on that, decide what should they do. Like, and it could be not like, create one microservice or one data pipeline. It could be creating several ones, but for just one particular domain which you define for that team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like analogy is very clear. The data meshes basically attempt to apply principle of microservices to data platforms, like attempt to make the data platform microservice based kind of.
That makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think we are quite clear with this. Hope our audience right now are on the same page with us. At least we were trying. Yeah. I will repeat once again that with DataOps, we are kind of in the middle or in the early beginning how to do that, and we know that we don't have enough tools to do that properly, and even now, properly is something which not everyone knows what it is.
Yep.
And here we come with with some opportunities for you guys to join different teams, or even us to build such tools.
Absolutely. So I learned a lot today. So thank you very much. That was like very enlightening for me personally to learn about data ops, what it is, and how it should be done properly. Synthesized looks like one of the important tools that can make this transformation easier, right? As with DevOps, it's still the transformation is still all here in the heads of people. It's about culture, it's about people, it's about team topologies more than tools, but tools are important, and looks like Synthesized is definitely one of the tools that people need to look when they try to come up with the right solutions for the pipeline. Also, I learned today that you are hiring, so that's great as well. Hopefully, it will help some people land in an amazing place, which is on the top of the spearhead this transformation. So this is also good to know. And thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Baruch, for summarizing all the stuff around that, and thanks for giving us some bits about DevOps, about some history, what's happened there, and how it was applied. Because you've seen it, actually, you've done all that stuff by yourself, and it's a great pleasure to have you here in our podcast. And thanks a lot, Dennis, that you have got time. I know it's quite a busy time and tough time for you right now. And yeah, I really enjoyed that time with you folks. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. See you next time then.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.